Good evening. I'm Councillor Alan Law. I'm the Chairman of Eastern Area Planning Committee. Welcome to this evening's meeting. So following full council last week, I'd like to welcome Councillor Keith Woodhams, who has replaced Councillor Jeremy Cottam on this committee. Welcome, Keith. I know you're not exactly a newcomer to this, and you bring a lot of previous experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
The other members of the committee in attendance this evening are Councillors Tony Linden, Royce Longton, Ross McKinnon, Alan McCrow, Jeffrey Mays, Graham Pask and Joe Stewart. And the following officers are in attendance to advise and support me and the meeting. Simon Till, Development Control Team Leader. Michael Butler, the Principal Planning Officer. Gareth Dowding, Principal Highways Officer. Sharon Ormer, a legal solicitor, and Jessica Bayliss, Strategic Support Policy Officer. I'm also assisted by Stephen Chard, who will be the Zoom host of the meeting this evening. Now, I'll now ask the meeting clerk, Jessica, to give some reminders to members and to other attendees about the way we conduct council meetings via Zoom. Over to you, Jess.
Thank you, Chairman. Member standard Zoom reminders are being provided to you on the screen. In addition to those points, if it becomes necessary for any members to telephone into the meeting, you won't be able to signal to speak. So once everyone who has raised a Zoom hand has spoken, I will ask the Chairman to invite anyone who has telephoned in to speak in order. Voting on the planning applications will take place via a name vote. Members will be asked in turn by the legal advisor how they wish to vote by stating they are for or against the proposal, or if they wish to abstain. Please remember to unmute yourself when voting. Any other votes will be conducted via a show of actual hands during the meeting. Unless the committee asks for the vote to be recorded, the outcome of the named vote will not appear in the minutes. So anyone wishing the vote to be recorded must indicate this before the vote is taken. If we need to adjourn the meeting at any point, the Chairman will adjourn and will advise the committee of the revised time and date of the meeting. If it is a short adjournment, you will be able to rejoin the Zoom meeting, otherwise a fresh appointment will be sent out. Do members have any questions about the way in which the meeting is going to be conducted before we proceed?
No, okay, thank you. Jessica, do we have any apologies?
There's no apologies this evening, Chairman.
Thank you. I'd now like to move on to item 2, which is the minutes of the last meeting. And do we have any comments? Please wave your hands if you have any questions or comments you wish to make on the minutes. I don't wish to go through them page by page. I'll just take them as, oh, I don't see anyone.
May I propose the minutes, Chairman?
Thank you very much, Kat. Thank you very much.
Second that, Chairman.
And we've got a seconder in Councillor Linden. Thank you. Just by raising your hands, please, for everyone in approval of that recommendation. That looks to be unanimous, everyone who was there. Thank you very much indeed. And I'd now like to go on to declarations of interest. Anyone got a declaration of interest for this meeting this evening? Councillor Stewart?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I know one of the objectors. I have not been in contact with that individual about this application. And actually, I'm really interested to hear the debate tonight about this. So I don't have any predetermined thoughts about it.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much, Councillor Stewart. Thank you very much. Well, having said that, no declarations of interest other than that comment. I'd like to move on, please, to the only item we've got tonight, which is the application at I can't remember the address now, 18.
Sandals Way.
Yep.
Sandals Way, Chairman.
That's correct. 18 Sandal Ways, Calcott. Thank you very much. Now, I normally go straight to the officer to introduce this. I just want to say straight away that very late on in the day, going through the papers, I noticed a couple of inconsistencies. I've already spoken to the case officer about this, one of them being the definition of the existing property throughout the papers, it refers to as a 4-bedroomed house. It is, in fact, as you see on the plans, a 6-bedroomed house. And that will have implications for parking, and parking seems to be the main issue. All I can say is, could you update us on that position, Michael, as you're taking us through your presentation? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, first I apologise if my mistake. I didn't make that absolutely clear in my report, but I will now. So the application. I don't know, Simon there? I hope he is. Simon Till.
No, I think I read out Simon was here, but I also recall a communication
He was
saying
going to do the screen sharing while I speak to the slide.
right.
Unless someone else wants to, but I can do it without that. But he was supposed to get. I'll carry on anyway, Chairman.
Can you bring? I'm sorry, Michael. Let me just interrupt you. Can you bring the screen up? Are you able to do that?
Yes, I haven't done it before, Chairman. I apologise.
Just you click on screen sharing.
Yeah. Okay, I can do that.
I don't think it's possible to give this presentation without a screen, frankly.
Okay, I haven't got the on this desktop. I haven't got the presentation ready, so I don't know what's happened to Simon. So I apologise for that. But shall I just carry on, Chairman?
No, I want legal advice on this. Sharon, as we can't, I don't think it's appropriate to go ahead with just a verbal on this. I think we need to see plans and photographs.
When you say you don't have it ready, do you mean you need to take some time to find it? Or you don't have it at all?
Yeah, I'm disappointed Simon's not here, because that's why I hadn't prepared it, because he was supposed to be doing on my behalf. The presentation has been done. It's in the committee agenda, but I haven't shared it to be technical on non-Citrix desktop, so I can't access it because then I'd lose Zoom. Obviously, I would have if I'd known I was screen sharing.
Is it worth seeing what's happened to Simon then?
Yeah, I think so. Apologies. I don't know where he's gone.
Shall we adjourn the meeting for a moment or two?
Yes, I think someone should call him, Chairman.
I'm sorry, say it again, Councillor Pascoe.
I think someone should call him. He was here a moment ago.
I think someone should call him, and also if he's got poor connection, it might be worth that he also sends the presentation to Michael and also maybe myself or one of the clerks. So
Jessica, are you able to contact Simon Till?
Michael might have his number, I'd imagine.
So no one's got his number?
Michael must have, I'd say.
Well, he's just disappeared. This is a bit of a shambles. Not very happy.
No.
Michael, are you phoning Simon Till?
I'll just phone him, Chairman.
Thank you. Why don't we just adjourn the meeting here?
I'll put up the adjournment screen. Hold on.
Stephen, are you able to hear me?
I just, Councillor Law, apologies. I just rang Simon, his system crashed. He said he reckoned he'd be back in a few minutes.
Okay, well, we'll give him a couple of minutes.
Thank you.
Stephen, are you able to hear me? I guess, Stephen, I want to ask how will I know when Simon has connected again?
Well, I'm probably as soon as we've got the word that the presentation is available by Simon or Michael, that they'll give us the word.
Okay.
Someone else has just joined.
Simon's in the panelist list now.
Okay. I'll stop. We'll agree with them, Chairman. I'll take off this screen and we'll look to resume.
Try and restart the meeting. Okay. Okay. I've got a box for Simon Till. I can't see him or hear him. Simon, are you there? Anyone watching from the outside, ladies and gentlemen, I got to apologize for it's a combination of a technical hitch and not having a backup plan. Simon, are you there? Can you put your presentation? Are you able to share your screen?
If you can hear Simon, you could try emailing the presentation to me and I can share it from where I am. That's if you can hear it, if that's possible.
Michael, you're the one that has got his phone number. Could you relay that message from Stephen to Simon? Get him to email the presentation to Stephen. It's not always like this, Councillor Williams. Michael, you're muted. We can't hear you.
The presentation's made its way to me, so I shall share it, and you'll just tell me
Oh,
when
good.
to move on from slide to slide, Michael, when we get to it.
Okay. Michael, go ahead, please. Could you unmute and take us through the presentation? And again, people who are there in the waiting room and any members of the public looking in, I apologize again. Waiting for you, Michael. Michael Butler, we cannot hear you. Stephen, what's going on? Can you?
Right, apologies. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Right, thank you. I'll start again. So the application is for the demolition of a two-storey side extension and erection of an attached dwelling to form two number 3-bed dwellings with associated access with additional parking, cycle stalls and refuse. The application is being considered at committee because the officer recommendation is to approve, and we have received in excess of 10 objections. If you have your agenda, turn to page 22. Could you move on to the next slide, please, Thank you. This is a photograph looking towards number 18 as existing. So it may not be apparent from this photograph, but on the right-hand side of number 18, there's an existing two-storey side extension with a garage. All that is proposed to be demolished, and in its place, in the plans which you'll see later on the agenda, is to be erected an attached three-bed dwelling of very similar style. So if this application is approved and built out, it will form a semi-detached pair of dwellings. I'll say it now rather than the update. The existing dwelling number 18, the floor plans do actually show 6 bedrooms rather than the 4, just to clarify that. And thank you, Chairman, for pointing that out. This is because it's what we call a dwelling, a small HMO, house of multiple occupation, which in technical terms, just to explain, is class C3 to C4, but that is permitted development. So the council cannot control that. For the purposes of this application, we are considering it wrongly or rightly in your view, but as officers, we're considering it as a 4-bed dwelling in terms of the required parking spaces. I will say it later, but if this application is approved, one of the conditions will actually remove future permitted development rights, so the 2 dwellings cannot then be converted to C4. Just to clarify further, anyway, the creation of bedrooms within dwellings does not actually comprise development in any event. One thing I'd like to draw attention in the planning history, which is also pertinent to this application, is that under the original outline permission for the whole of Ford's Farm Estate, under 104545, granted in 1976, no permitted development rights were removed in relation to the creation of hard standings on the front gardens. And therefore, even if this application is refused tonight, which of course that may happen without prejudice, the owners and occupiers of those dwellings can create those hard standings without recourse to the planning authority, so long as they are permeable in nature. So much for the people side, but it is important in this case. Moving on to the consultation, part 5 of the agenda sheet. Holybrook Parish Council strongly object to this application for the reasons they set out, and there are written submissions which will be read out later. However, the Highway Authority, for the reasons set out on the agenda sheet, and no doubt that will be the subject of debate, are not objecting to this application. They consider that there will be sufficient parking on the site, having regard to the communal parking available elsewhere on the estate. As I mentioned earlier, we've had 27 contributors to this application, all of which object, and for all the reasons set out in paragraph 5.3 in the agenda report. Could you move down the next slide, please, Simon, or Simon and/or Stephen? This is a photograph of the front of the application site, showing the front gardens and the footpath where the new parking will be if the application is approved. And that's important in relation to the character and appearance of the development, which I'll come on to shortly. But firstly, I'll just cover the overall principle of development, which is set out in paragraph 6.4 of the sheet. For the reasons set out in that paragraph, it is absolutely clear that the principle of new development, new housing on this brownfield site within a sustainable location within the eastern urban area is entirely acceptable. So there's no debate about the principle. In terms of the character and appearance, this is something which the members may wish to debate at this meeting. I should say I visited the site on a number of occasions, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's a unique greenway, alleyway, whatever you like to call it, but it is quite unusual for modern estates to have this almost completely carless area. And it does certainly add something to the amenity of the area. There's no doubt about that. And it is quite attractive. However, having said that, notwithstanding the fact that design, character and appearance in paragraph 124 in the NPPF, the framework, good design, character and appearance is encouraged by the government. As I mentioned earlier, without recourse to the planning authority, hard standings could be created for car parking in this small alleyway without permission. And also in the light of the non-objection from highways, we have taken that into account. So on balance, in terms of character and appearance, whilst officers consider there will be a degree of harm created by this proposal, that harm is not so significant as to merit a recommendation to refuse. Could you move on, please, Simon, to the next slide? And again, please. That's just a photograph of the front of the application site as is, with the garages existing to the right. If the development proceeds, then there will be an extension to the right, i.e. to the north of that development. Moving on to how the new dwelling may impact on residential amenity around the site. Can you move on down the slides, please, Stephen? Carry on down to the first plan. That's, and yes, that's it. Fine, thank you. So there are a number of dwellings around the application site. There's Roquetas to the west. There's number 21, Wheatlands to the, I think to the north, yes. 7 Sandhills to the southeast, and of course number 6.
Michael, may I interrupt you, please? I have noticed that when you're speaking direct into the screen, you're very clear.
Okay, yeah, right.
When you're looking sideways and obviously reading,
okay,
your mic is very omnidirectional, and we're losing.
Thank you, Chairman, for that. I'll try and speak again. So, did you hear what I said a few minutes ago? Yeah.
Well, most of it, yes.
Yeah. So the impact on Roquetas is set out in paragraph 6.8, and we consider the separation distances acceptable and there will be no harm to amenity. Similarly, the impact on number 21 to the north is the separation distance will also be acceptable in terms of loss of privacy, possible impact on outlook and so forth. We've considered the impact on number 7 Sandhills Way, and again, actually there will be virtually no impact on that property. And finally, least but certainly not least importantly, the impact on number 16 Sandhills Way, from which we've received a number of objections. There will be a degree of impact from the additional car parking adjacent to their property, but again with additional landscaping which we're proposing to be conditioned I don't know if you can see my cursor in this area here. We consider on balance that will be acceptable. Can you move on down the screen, please? Yes, that's fine. Location of parking in practice. This parking and so on has been one of the most contentious applications in this application, understandably. I reiterate again that the highways officer has not, objected to the application. This is because, as you'll see from this slide, it will be possible to have 2 parking spaces within the immediate curtilage of the existing dwelling, which will be 3-bed, which meets policy P1 standards, which is our council standards. You'll notice that there's only 1 car parking spaces remaining for the new 3-bed, which has led to some understandable confusion. Why is it not 2 spaces? This is because the highways officer, and it's explained in paragraph 6.13 of the report, has stated that the relative harm caused by the reduced shortfall from 2 to 1 is on balance acceptable in the light of communal car parking spaces being available elsewhere across the Ford's Farm estate. That, of course, is something which the councillors may wish, you councillors may wish to discuss, but that is the highways officer's advice. Can you just go back up, please, Stephen? There's a photograph of the driveway to the garages. I'll tell you when. That's it. This, for those members who haven't been able to see the site, this is the looking up the forecourt along the access way towards number 18 Sandfield. So that is the vehicular access way where the vehicles will run. Before I come to the conclusion, Chairman, I'd just like to draw your attention to the update sheet. Since writing the report, we've had one additional objection from a local resident. He is concerned whether the users, occupiers of the new dwelling will have a legal right to use the garage forecourt access to the dwellings in question. Just in terms of my officer comment on that, the applicant has assured the officer through his agent that such legal rights do exist. There's an additional condition officers are recommending regarding landscaping, and I'll read it out in full because I think it's important. No dwelling should be occupied until an agreed landscaping scheme has been submitted and approved in writing by the council. This scheme shall ensure a suitable landscape screen between the proposed parking spaces for number 18 and the adjacent number 16 Sandhills Way. On first occupation of the new dwelling in the first available planting season, the screening shall be planted out to the satisfaction of the council and maintained as such. And the reason is to specifically protect the amenity of the occupants on number 16. And finally, as Councillor Linden helpfully pointed out earlier, missing from the committee report, Councillor Argyle is also a ward member, as well as Councillor Sumner, for this particular ward. So turning to the planning, balance and conclusion, Chairman, I'll make no secret of the fact that officers are recommending this favourably, but it is it's a balanced recommendation because there are pros and cons. But in technical terms, I'd like to highlight there is no reason for this application to be refused. And that is the basis on which officers are recommending approval. And there are, of course, advantages because however small the benefit may be in relative terms, one additional dwelling is being built in a sustainable brownfield site, which is an acceptable design character. And therefore, we are recommending conditional permission. I'd just like to highlight one or two particular conditions. And that's condition 5, which removes the permitted development rights between Class C and 3C4. And also condition 7, which removes all permitted development rights for both dwellings in perpetuity, unless an application is made to relax that condition. Of course, we'd have control of that. Thank you very much, Chairman, and apologise again for the technical problems.
Thank you very much, Michael. I think members, after a very slow, shaky start we got there, I think I trust that's all very clear to everyone. And obviously we'll clarify things with questions when the appropriate time comes of the officers. Jessica, would now like to read the submission of the parish council, please. And Stephen, do we have a parish council representative in the waiting room?
Yeah, Chairman. Would you like to bring them through at this stage or wait till after the reading out?
I would like to bring them through so they could hear. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'll just share my screen. Okay, so I'm just checking you can hear me okay and you can see that.
Yes,
clearly.
we can. Yes.
Okay. So to begin with is the submission from Holybrook Parish Council. So the proposed development should be refused. The shortfall of one parking space is a shortfall and reason enough for refusal. Parking provision as cited in West Berkshire Council Housing Site Allocations DPT 2006 2026 states that the Eastern urban area, a 3-bedroom house should have 2 spaces as a minimum. The parking plan states do not scale, so how can a desktop assessment be made on a plan not to scale? The application should be refused until the plans can be proved and verified. The Parish Council has completed a measurement of the parking entrance and questions the dimensions given. The application seems to rest entirely on the parking plan, which we refute. There is not enough room to enable the manoeuvres required to use the 3 spaces shown, let alone the 4 actually required. Plus, the spaces are not allocated. Due to the difficult nature of the parking design, it will lead to disputes in the future. This application was previously refused. The layout does not comply with the local planning authority standards. This could result in on-street parking in the vicinity, adversely affecting road safety and the flow of traffic. This fact has not changed. Therefore, the refusal must be upheld. There is no right of way to the new property. Existing owners have easement rights over the forecourt, but this would not automatically extend to the new property. The garage owners have financial responsibility for the maintenance of the forecourt. It would be irresponsible to not refuse this application until rights of way and compensation for damage caused to the forecourt during construction has been agreed. Officers accept that harm will be caused to number 16, a reason for refusal, especially noise and light pollution at night by parking cars so close to the resident's window is unacceptable. Planting is not a viable or appropriate measure to excuse and ignore policy and poor design. The harm caused to the residents' health and well-being cannot be ignored. Reliance on cycle racks in order to pass the design that lacks appropriate parking provision is inconsistent with design guidance and building standards. The proposed location of the cycle racks is wholly inappropriate. There is no external front to back access and therefore necessitates bikes 6 shown being carried through the house. The new house is of small proportions, making this almost impossible, and more so with the car parked as close to the property as shown on the proposed plan. The planning conditions as proposed in the Eastern Area Planning Committee reports are unworkable and do not go far enough to protect the existing residents and the local environment. It is absolutely not necessary to inflict another house in this cramped space to assist a fulfilling housing quota. There are plenty of other applications in the Eastern Area with 199 already under construction in Holybrook Parish. In summary, there is tangible and reasonable doubt regarding the robustness of the parking provision, access and turning space, and subsequently harm will be caused to existing residents. The application must be refused. And that concludes the submission from the Parish Council.
Thank you, Jess. Stephen, do we have a representative of the Parish Council, and can you tell me who it is, please?
Yes, we have 4 representatives. And they are Claire Tull, Mary Bedwell, Andrew Lenehan, and Charles Kroll.
Right, thank you. And which one's speaking? Which one's available to speak?
Claire Tull has just started her video, so I'm assuming she's spokesperson.
I
can speak. Yes, if you have questions, I can speak on behalf of the council.
That's who I need to know, Miss Tull. Mrs. Tull or Ms. Tull? Mrs. Tull. That's what I need to know. Members, okay. Thank you. Members, you've heard the written submission. Do anyone any questions? Councillor Pask, I see a hand there.
Chairman, thank you. Mrs. Toll, good evening.
Good evening.
Just a quick question, maybe one that I need to ask of officers as well, potentially even highways officers. But you make a statement that existing owners have easement rights over the forecourt. And let me make it clear, I have visited the site. I had an essential journey to do to take me to the east and west Berkshire today, and I very deliberately came and looked at this because I was very confused, having read all the comments. So I am acutely aware of the layout. What is your reasoning as a parish council, purveyors of local knowledge in depth, how can you say that they don't have easement? Can you explain why you've made that comment, please?
The communal garage areas on Ford's Farm, the actual access is under the deeds of one property, that being the case where I live at Brookside. So to assume that the new owners at number 18 and the residents at number 18, they presumably have it, or the existing occupants have easement through those garages. But is that automatically conferred to any new residents? And I think our particular concern is that that is the only access, and for construction you've got big lorries going through and having to park and blocking those garages, and the potential damage to the forecourt, the concrete being broken up, people not being able to access their garages. We can see that there could be potential for a lot of problems there.
Okay.
Sorry, can I just comment? My understanding is I may be a little amiss with the numbers, but the last but one house on Wheatlands Close backing onto this is the technical owner of that access. Is that correct to the best of your knowledge?
That's as far as I understand, yes. So they are responsible for that forecourt, and the cost of repair, maintenance and the like is entirely theirs.
Thank you.
If I could just come in, I suspect, I'm just going to ask the officers to clarify this, but I suspect access over an easement is a private matter and is not a planning matter. Could you comment on that? Is my understanding correct, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, Sharon, I'm sure our legal expert would correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm 99% sure that those civil access rights are not planning matters. And in fact, it's quite possible, and I know this committee has in the past approved planning applications in the knowledge that because of covenants or whatever, an application may not be actually legally possible to be implemented. But what the committee is doing is looking at material planning considerations in assessing this application. It is not for the committee to consider any future legal private access rights, ownership rights, whatever. That is a matter for the developer to resolve. Not the committee.
That's fine. Thank you. And Sharon,
Thank you.
would you concur with that?
Yes, I've got nothing further to add. I agree with what Mr.
Thank you.
Buss
Thank you
said.
very much. Okay. Members, any other questions of the parish council? No? Oh, Councillor Linden. You need to unmute. Thank you.
Yes, I have, Chairman. Thank you. I'd like to ask the parish. So in terms of the easement, because it's moving to effectively a house of multiple ownership of up to 6 bedrooms to 2 separate houses, this is why you brought it in. And also, I'm not 100% sure if that's relevant. Are the garages used for car parking or just for normal storage?
Can I just say, the question on the easement's already been dealt with. It's not a planning matter.
I realise that, Chairman.
I think your question about the garage is being used for parking or for storage is probably a relevant matter. So what do you know about that from the parish council's point of view, Mrs. Toll?
Can I just add another comment on the parking?
No, could you just answer the question, please? I'm sorry, we can't have any additional information just thrown in other than the answer to the question.
It's relevant to easement.
I'll tolerate this. Go ahead.
Well, just with the easement, you will have multiple vehicle access in and out of a very, very narrow entrance. It's 2.5 metres from the pavement to the post, and it is impossible to get 2 cars parked side by side and a third in that space.
We'll have that conversation with the highways officer. Thank you. But could you answer the question that Councillor Linden asked about the use of the.
I wasn't aware there was a question there. I'm sorry. I thought it was part of the
So
same.
he was basically saying, are the garages used for parking cars, or are they mainly used for storage?
I'm going to say for parking.
Okay.
I have no personal knowledge of
To the best of your knowledge,
individual
okay.
owners, but the indication would be that they're used for parking.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions, members? No, no other questions. Thank you very much, members of the Parish Council. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
I think you now get put back into the waiting room to watch us from there. Jessica, could you move on, please, and read the, I guess it's a summary, is it, of the objectors' comments?
Yes, Chairman.
And Stephen, if you want to bring the any objectors who are here into the meeting, you can do so.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jessica.
Okay, so I will read submission summaries from each of the 4 objectors. So starting with number 1, so Julius Stevens. The application should be refused. The access width is 2.6 metres, not 2.8 metres, as the highway officers asserts. Confusion reigns as to why, in accordance with policy P1 and 2, new dwellings do not have the required 4 parking spaces, only 3 are provided. The CMS condition should be agreed and sorted out prior to any planning permission, as the development in question is not just a small job. The submission from Ian Saville, still worried about the apparent erroneous conclusions of the highways officer in recommending the application for approval on the basis that there will be a reduced shortfall of 1 space as opposed to 2 spaces. A site visit should have been undertaken by the highways officer as well, COVID notwithstanding. The garden spaces do not meet the minimum requirements, in addition, as are below the required 100 square metres, shortfall of 30 square metres. Finally, the introduction of these parking spaces in this green alleyway will be detrimental to the appearance and character of the vicinity. The application should be rejected. So moving on to the submission summary from Robin Rimington. The area is attractive and adds to the amenity. The inclusion of the parking spaces will add to noise and disturbance. In addition, further pollution will be caused from exhaust fumes. There are safety issues in relation to the pedestrian vehicle conflict in addition to be taken into account. The committee should note that if the proposal is approved, the careless walkway will be changed into a carway. This will be profound and irreversible change and will cause both emotional and environmental harm. Please refuse the application. The submission summary from Peter and Sue Stagg. The objectors do not agree nor understand the underlying logic of the highways officer in firstly recommended the previous application for refusal, but now changing this one to approval. It does not appear to be consistent. If the application is approved, it will inevitably increase parking pressures off-site on the adjoining highways. If the application is approved, the condition relating to CMS should be approved before any permission is granted. There are many issues to be resolved in the CMS. How can the garage forecourt area be permitted for use for large construction vehicles, etc.? There is not enough space on the application site for the turning of parked vehicles. It would need to be on adjoining private land if so. The application should be refused as before. And that concludes the submission summaries from the objectors.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Thank you. Do we have, Stephen, do we have objectors in? Do I see a few faces? Yes, I do.
Yes, Chairman. Mr. Stevens, Mr. Saville. There's a third objector who's I can't identify their name, but I'm hoping they'll do so themselves.
Yeah, they've come up as just a Zoom attendee, I think.
Yes, I'm hoping they'll confirm that their identity very soon.
Okay, fine. Members, do you have any questions for any particular named objector? Councillor Pass, did I see Councillor Stewart hand up? Thank you, Councillor Stewart. And who's the question for, or is it just to objectors in general?
generally any of the objectors, I think, because so it's sort of picking up on some of the questions that we had previously. So I am familiar with the area and the garages and the whole piece. With regards to parking, it's funny how, you know, a lot of things these days resort to questions about parking. But there was conversation, there have been comments made about parking in the vicinity. And I'm just interested to know what residents' experience is of parking, so communal parking in the vicinity. And if you could tell us from your personal experience what impact this particular development might have on that parking.
Okay, I saw Mr. Stevens waving. Mr. Stevens, do you want to unmute and answer that question?
Yes, I'm grateful to you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is the issue that exercises the minds of a lot of people on the question of obviously the need to, if there's going to be extra vehicles that can't be accommodated on the site. And there are different views about whether that's a good idea or not to extend the parking on the site. But nevertheless, it is constantly alleged by the applicant that there's plenty of room elsewhere. Now, anybody who's lived here, I've been here for 36 years, everybody knows that that is not the case. There are 4 communal parking areas to which the applicant refers at Wheatlands Close, Sandhills Way itself, and Hargreaves. And he says that in the vicinity, there are, most houses have private driveways. Well, as is the case in my representation, I did a count, and the truth is that of the 42 houses in all those places, including Brookside, which is also a parkless zone, there are 4 private driveways out of 42 residences. So the idea that somehow or other this is most that's not going to push cars onto the road is erroneous. And I'm disappointed not only in the first application back in the summer, but also in this application, that the Highways Office have made no attempt to meet this point, which is undeniable because it's a simple count. And that's, so in answer to your question, Councillor Stewart, the answer is that those of us who live here and have been here for some time know that parking is already tight.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. I will, when the time comes, the appropriate time comes, we'll make sure that question is addressed to the Highways Officer on specifically number of driveways in the area. I visited it today, and I have my view on that as well, which I'll maybe relate to later. Any other questions of the objectors, please, from any of the members?
Mr. Saville has had his hand raised. Perhaps wishing to respond to that question.
I'm sorry, Mr. Saville, I have not been able to see that hand, but please unmute yourself and make your comments. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, Chair. I'll probably just echo Mr. Stevens' comments.
Can I interrupt you, please? You must address Councillor Stewart's question.
Oh, beg your pardon. So, yes, parking is a nightmare. And we're sort of fortunate to some degree because a number of the houses on Sanders Way don't have cars. If we had, I've got 2 next door neighbours, they don't have cars. If they had cars, it would be even worse. And I think that's indicative of what will happen if there's an additional house there. At the moment, the residents of the HMO, I think only 2 of them have cars. The rest of them are on bikes or they walk. So the risk around parking cannot be over-exaggerated, to be honest, is what I wanted to add there.
Mr. Saville, can I ask, where do you live? Which house?
I live at number 10. So 10. I'm at the other end. At the other end of the walkway.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions? Councillor Pask.
Chairman, thank you. A question was asked earlier, and I'd like to ask the residents because they're the font of all knowledge, aren't they? Especially if they've lived there a little while. these garages, I seem to have established, are they actually allocated to individual houses? And are they actually used for parking? I mean, technically, and we will come on to this in debate, I'm sure, that our policies do not include parking space or garages as parking spaces. But I'd be interested to know, bearing in mind there's a block of 8 or so, I think I counted, on each side leading up to this application site. I'm curious to know if someone could tell me who owns them and how are they accessed, and do some of them, for example, have access from individuals' back gardens? They appear to back onto back gardens, Chairman, hence the...
Okay. I'm not quite sure how the access to the garage actually matters, but I think your question...
Well, I'm talking about parking, Chairman.
Yes, I understand.
The communal parking spaces as well.
Yeah.
That was my...
I understand your point, and I think your point is the real question here. The pertinent question is: are they allocated to a house?
That is the pertinent question, Chairman. That's what I started out.
I've got Mr. Stevens with his hand up again. Mr. Stevens, can you address that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. The answer is that all those 16 garages are allocated to individual houses. 7 of them single garages on the Wheatlands Close side, with one house having a double garage. And on the other side, Sandhills Way, with access from those houses that back onto the garages, have access into there, and one house in Wheatlands Close does. And otherwise, there are number 16, and I've forgotten which other one has one of those garages. So yes, they are all allocated. And to the point of whether they're used for cars or not, the answer is it's a mixed bag. If I take myself over 36 years, I use it slightly less than we did before, because over 36 years we have accumulated rather more rubbish than has to go. But my wife now has a small car, and we can just about use it at the same time. But,
yeah, the problem is cars are getting bigger, aren't they?
Yeah, that's right. I hope that satisfies your point, Councillor Pax.
Yes, thank you very much. Any of the objectors bursting to answer that one? I see.
Sorry, it's Mr. Sullivan. Thank you, Chair. Sorry, if I could just add that obviously in terms of the communal spaces, it is a free-for-all. And so there's people from Brookside parking in Sandhills, and there's people from Wheatlands parking everywhere else. So it is it's first come, first served.
Although I got to say, when I was down there this afternoon, the immediate space just beside the garages, just before you get to them, there was probably 5 cars parked with about 5-6 of available spaces.
Yes, I think if you came at the weekends or the evenings, you'd find the exact opposite.
I can understand. I'm just reporting back. Is that the unknown? Is that
Robin Remington? Robin Remington.
Robin, do you have something you wish to add to this?
Yeah, I would say that the car parking in the garages, I think quite a proportion do use the garages for parking, because parking can be sometimes virtually impossible at weekends on the separate car parks. So I think they do use the garages. And I just need to say very quickly, I hope you don't mind, but there was mispronounced.
Please just address that question. I don't want any new information. We're not permitted.
But anyway, to make this carless, people park in the garages or in the...
Thank you very much. Members, any other questions or objectors? Okay. As a group of residents, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming and taking the time. Thank you. Hang around, and we're going to be another half hour or so before we get to determination. And I don't think we have any applicant or supporters. Am I correct in that? Stephen?
That is correct, Chairman.
Okay, so we then go on to the ward member. Now, do we have a ward? I got down as Councillor Argyle speaking, but I don't see.
No, I've got Councillor Argyle, but do we have Councillor Sumner, who's just come into the room?
Okay, Councillor Sumner. Hello, Richard. Off you go. You've got 5 minutes at maximum.
I will try not to use 5 minutes up, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members. I have to say I'm disappointed with the recommended outcome of this application. Residents and the parish have raised some excellent planning relevant points, which in my view should overturn that recommendation. I'm grateful to you, Chairman, for noting at the outset that the calculations on bedrooms is incorrect. And I think that is highly relevant to the wider sense of everything that we're discussing this evening. My feeling is that this is wholly inappropriate. It's certainly not in keeping with the rest of Sandhills Way, which is, as we've established, essentially a walkway with this sole exception. I'd noted examples cited of other designs in the wider area as a means of acceptance, and I think that's flawed at best. This area has everything from flats to 6-bedroom houses and possibly more than that. I question the access provisions being suitable. If more than one car is parked at the new house, then there will potentially be no access to the original house unless we accept that happening via the pavement, and that pavement doesn't have a drop curb, Chairman. And if we get an opportunity at the end, I would ask Mr. Butler to bring back, or Mr. Chard to bring back, photo number 1, which I think is quite damning in itself. Access to the rear garden through the house to the resident, and in fact any future resident, would need to have everything that was needed for the rear of the property carried through the house. Again, that's not acceptable in my view, and I know I'm not alone in that opinion. Parking, absolutely the biggest issue of this application, isn't it? Parking access could very easily be blocked to the existing house, and if the garage owners use their spaces, and let's be quite clear, whether they do or they don't, they are entitled to use them, then that existing block, potentially neither the new house nor the existing house will be able to use their spaces as has been laid out in the plan. I did note with interest, and it was brought up earlier, that our website and planning map, the red line extends from the property to the road and through the garage block, and we've had conversation, I won't add too much to that. There are clarifying statements in the documents that this isn't owned by the property. So whilst it's there, it's only to indicate access. And it will be standard on this estate for the owners of those garages to have an allocation outside of them. And again, I live on the estate, I use a garage block, and we have a space outside and a space opposite, half a space opposite, I should say. I question that this is enough to safely accommodate construction traffic. And again, it causes major concerns about parking and especially for turning. And that's, as has been mentioned, our forecourt, as it's been referred to, is 8 garages long. So to turn round and reverse that entire length with a pavement coming round a blind corner is not acceptable. Just not acceptable. That is an accident waiting to happen. And I don't think we should stand prepared to let that be the case. Enforcement, clearly, in my role, Chairman, is one that concerns me. Driving on the pavement, parking on the pavement, all of these things are potentially going to happen, causing an obstruction leading to residents having to take evasive action isn't acceptable. Who's going to enforce this? Well, it won't be our officers. It will need to be Thames Valley Police. Should we be accepting an application which generates police involvement potentially to, let's say, smooth over residents' arguments? Okay. Chairman, members, there is no need for this extra house, and it was referred to earlier on in the Holybrook area. The parish quite rightly referred to 199 houses currently under development. This one doesn't sufficiently count towards that quota as far as I'm concerned. Here are some numbers for consideration. In the time I've lived in Calcutta, which is most of the time I've owned a property, we've taken 2 garden developments in Goodwin, 7 in Low Lane, 39 in Underwood Road, 45 at Mill Lane, 4 at the old Murdoch site, which is waiting to be built, 27 in Bourne Close, 28 in Dorking Way, waiting to be built, and that 199 opposite. One more is not going to help our quota. This one will not help our quota. This essentially leaves...
I think you've made that point. You're about to run out of time, Councillor.
I'm about to wrap up, sir. This essentially leaves Holybrook green areas to the linear park, a couple of playgrounds, the school field, verges and gardens, which we now appear to support developing, if they're big enough and irrespective of anything else. I understand that the phrase "bring" applied to this proposal to approve this application is in balance. this chairman, whilst I have the utmost respect for our officers, is not in balance. This is not a balanced application, and approval of it does not help the residents in one iota. Will they get anything from this? No.
Thank you. I'm going to have to stop.
Pleasure. Thank you, Chairman.
Right, no, I'll stay around for questions. Any questions? Any other members from the member? No.
You're very kind, members. Thank you.
Okay. I think you made your you made your points very eloquently. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
As has everyone, by the way. You know, it's not just you getting the compliment. Now, members, let's go into questions, please, of the officers. Who wishes to lead off on the questions? Councillor Pask. I've got Councillor Macro up as well. Can we just ask for this one? Can we all use the brown the blue hand, please? It's a bit difficult to see people waving.
I did both, Chairman, because I didn't think you saw the yellow hand. Right. Question for the planning officer, please. Very often in the planning history, or at least in the text following the planning history, we learn why a previous application has been refused. I have reread the agenda. Perhaps I'm missing it totally, but I can't see why. The application made only in September of last year was refused. And what has changed between this application and that application? And we even get planning inspectors' reports sometimes if something's been refused. So basically the question is, what has changed, Chairman?
Thank you. Good question. Michael?
Yeah, apologies if it wasn't made clear on the planning history through you, Chair. Although I didn't deal with the application, I mean, that's irrelevant. It was another officer. But my understanding is that it was an identical application apart from the fact there were no on-site parking spaces provided for the new dwelling, effectively, or the existing dwelling, if I can put it that way. So there was a clear under-provision of parking, and therefore the highways officer, having regard to policy P1, specifically recommended refusal. So the sole reason for refusal was lack of parking.
Okay, fine.
Right. Okay. Chairman, can I just come back? Can I emphasise, since you used the word, Mr. Butler, the sole reason? So restricted. That is garden sizes below our recommended minimum was not a factor, and nor was. Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll take.
I think that's a valid point. Let's clarify this. There was only one reason for the previous refusal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, fine, good, okay. I've now got, next in line is Councillor Macro. Alan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned the situation regarding the hard standing, and that if the hard standing was pervious, it didn't need planning permission. I noticed from the drawing that is described as block paving. Does that count as pervious?
Yes, Chairman, block paving and pavers is counted as permeable in terms of the general permission development order. If it's impermeable, then only 5 square metres are permitted, e.g. tarmac or some form of hard standing. But in this case, it would have been permitted development.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that okay, Alan? Yep.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Councillor Stewart. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Chairman. So a question around there seems to be some difference of opinion about the size of the opening into access into the development or potential development. And I think it might be related as well to Councillor Somner's question about he wanted to see the first photograph to sort of, so I guess I've got a question for officers about whether it is it 2,600 millimetres or if it's 2,800 millimetres, I think have been quoted. And can we also see that picture just to see
Stephen,
what that looks like?
Could you bring the first one up again, please? It's the best of photos. And so the question and the point you're trying to make.
So I want to know what that measurement is, but also why there is a difference in measurement. So I think it may have been Holybrook Parish Council that have, and possibly the other objectors as well, that have raised, they've given a different number to officers.
Yep.
Leave that to Mr. Dowding to answer, Chairman.
Yes, and could you take the picture down? Could you unshare the screen if that's the term? Thanks. Mr. Dowding, yes, I've got a question related on the top of that. I noticed that the explanation given was the measurement was made just by scaling up from the drawings. And at that particular time, obviously, when the report was written, a highway officer had not visited the site. But I understand that you visited the site today. Did you measure that particular?
No, I'm afraid I didn't, Mr. Chairman. I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't measure it.
So can you address the issue then?
I'm afraid I can't. I can only take what I've seen on the report, the same as you have, that the Highway Service has taken a measurement from a plan, but the Highway Service has also asked for a condition to satisfy that correct dimensions are recorded before the development is taken into occupation.
So if it turns out the developments on the applicant on the application are incorrect, he will not be able to proceed with the application if we approve it. Is that correct?
If that condition cannot be met because there's an error from the applicant, that is correct. Yes.
Fine. Thank you. Okay. That's any other questions from Councillor Pask? You want to come back on that?
I would, Chairman. I know I'm not allowed to submit new information, but I actually have a better picture, if I may.
Well, we can't see. We can't see it, and we can't.
It's
really see it.
It's the same picture, Chairman. It's exactly the same picture as just being put on the screen, and it's, I think, in my humble opinion, a little clearer.
But I got to tell you, Councillor Pask, you might be able to see it very clear on your phone.
You can't. All right.
When you put this up on a very small, it's not clear at all. So,
I apologise, Chairman.
Well, no, you don't apologise. Can you verbalize what you're trying to point out?
I can. I was just about to, Chairman. The question I have for Mr. Dowding is, from this, you can even put up the original picture, but basically the entrance to this, whatever size it is, I don't mind, I'm not arguing whether it's 2.6, 2.8 or 2 point anything else. Behind the fence on the left-hand side, there's a footpath of about 4 feet in old money, the one up the front of all these houses. Then you've got the lawn, the grass in the front, and then you've got the width of a driveway with a very small a Peugeot car parked in it. Mr. Dowding, you say, or the planning officer, which I assume comes from the highways officer's recommendations on, let me just get this right, on condition 4, it actually says, and I will read it out to you, the dwelling hereby permitted shall not be occupied until the approved vehicle parking and turning space, existing dwelling and new dwelling hereby approved. Could I ask the question, please, and that is a condition, how vehicles are expected to turn in this very restricted area, or are people expected to reverse? And you, I believe, tried to turn your car around, which of course you managed to do, between the garages, but you'll agree that space is rather tight. So the question very clearly, Chairman, I'm not debating, the question very clearly is, should there be a provision on site for cars to be able to turn round so they can front in and front out?
And can I, before you answer that question, Mr. Dowding, I always understood that we were against reversing out onto a main thoroughfare.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we are against reversing out onto roads. However, it's not a classified road, so reversing out onto it is permitted.
Okay.
I suspect that condition 4 has been used as a standard condition, and therefore the turning element of that has just been left in. It would not be unreasonable for someone to reverse those garages. Myself, I turned a 5 metre long car within that garage forecourt small in. Okay, it took me it was a 5 point turn, but it was possible to turn my vehicle within that garage area. But it's also not impossible to reverse the length of those garages. And in fact, even for emergency services, a reverse of around 25 meters is still acceptable for a fire engine. A vehicle would be reversing out onto the highway, which at that point is not a no-no as far as we're concerned, because it is an unclassified road. But there also is the option that there may be spare spaces somewhere within the communal parking for someone to reverse into and then to exit that communal area in forward gear. But the parking would be available within the frontage of that development, but there certainly, unfortunately, would not be room for turning within the frontage of that development.
Members, any other questions? Councillor Stewart, is that a new hand or an old hand?
It's a new hand. I don't have an old hand. Well, it's a question actually, and again, I think was raised by Parish Council, was around whether do we have restrictions or do we have regulations around the size of a parking space? Because a comment has been made about those two vehicles parking alongside each other and whether actually you would be able to open the car doors. So do we need to consider that in this as well?
Would you like me to answer it, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead, Gareth.
Yeah, yes, our standard car park spaces are 2.4 by 4.8 metres. Ideally, we like to see 2.5 by 5, as cars are generally getting larger. However, 2.4 by 4.8 is a standard car park space, and that also still allows for a car door to open. Condition 4 clearly states that they have to provide a plan showing that our standard car park spaces can be provided within the development site. Therefore, we would wish to see a plan which has dimensions on it, accurate dimensions, so that we could assess that as part of that condition.
Do we have that plan yet?
I believe it's a condition, so I don't think we have it as yet.
Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, the plan is shown on the tracking plan, which we can share again if you wish. I showed in my presentation. So it was accepted by the officer, so that would be conditioned. So was that
the plan showing the 3 parking spaces and
the
access?
Yeah. So
we've got that on our pack.
Okay.
Okay, I've got no other hands up. I've got a couple of questions for you, Gareth, if you don't mind. Question raised by one of the objectors, or a point made by one of the objectors, about the number of driveways. And he was pointing out that the applicant said there are lots of driveways around, and he said he counted from, I don't know from how many he was counting in total, I can't remember, but he said I only counted 4. And I got to say, in my visit this afternoon, I didn't see too many. Do you have, you're the highways officer, do you have a view on that?
This application, I'm afraid not. No, we're looking at this application as it's, on its own. We're not looking at what other people have in terms of their driveways or their access to the properties. We're ensuring that this application is looked at properly and that this application meets our requirements in terms of access, parking, whether or not it has a driveway or not. Unfortunately, what other people have is not important to this application. It's single purpose.
Well, it kind of is, if I can just disagree with you, because we try to make sure that certain things as a result of development don't stand out like a sore thumb. So what else is around in the area that's a kind of a standard we like to try and maintain, and that's to do with fitting into the environment, fitting into the character of the area, overall amenity. So it is to me, I understand what you're saying, judge this on its own merits, but I think the very fact that if this was one of a very small number of driveways, it means something. It means it's slightly different from the general tone of the, if I can call it the estate, of the grouping. Okay, just one other point, and I'm a little bit, I think I know the answer, but I'm a little bit confused. The existing house is because when those properties were built in the 70s, there was no withdrawal of permitted development rights. So my understanding is, as you can turn a piece of grass in front of your house into hard standing to produce a parking space, that's all under permitted development rights, correct?
That's correct, Chairman.
Yeah. So when I look at this, when you look at the pictures and when you go down there, this whole area, and it's not just these 5-6 houses, the whole of the houses around that area have got lots of just pedestrian access. It's old style. We didn't have, you must have so many parking spaces per dwelling in those days. What you actually had was houses, no cars right in front, no road, no street, just a pedestrian way and separate garages.
Yeah. Do you want me to comment on that, Chairman?
This is turning therefore a pedestrian way into someone said a car way. Does permitted development allow, my real question is, does permitted development allow that to happen under planning policy?
I can answer that question, Chairman, because fortunately I looked through the detailed planning history today. The wording, and this will get technical, but it's necessarily technical.
Okay.
The wording, there are three conditions on the original outline of the estate which relate to permitted development. One is pertinent, well, they're all pertinent. One relates to the garage accommodation, which must remain for car parking. Clearly, that may not be happening. Whether the authority wants to take a future view on that is entirely up to the authority. That is a fact on the consent. The other one relates to no extensions, buildings, and so on within the curtilage. The final one is a very unusual one, and we wouldn't place it today, but bearing in mind this is over 40 years ago. In the front curtilages, if I can put it that way, and the walkway, any fences, walls, enclosures, or even planting, which is highly unusual, is actually restricted.
Ah.
The wording, and I've looked at this closely for obvious reasons, does not include hard standings, which is unusual. Now, I have to say, I will say, that if in fact hard standings had been controlled by this condition, because this is a balanced recommendation, my recommendation may well, and this is without prejudice, of course, may well be one of refusal. But given the fact that these hard standings can still be created without recourse to the planning authority,
if I understand you right, you're saying you can't put a hedge or a fence there, yet our landscape that we request.
No. If there's a planning, the condition allows for a planning application to be submitted, and of course that's what's being done.
Okay.
So if the planning authority are yourselves who approve it tonight, then anything flowing from that through conditions will allow it. But that condition actually is very unusual because actually planting is not development anyway. So I imagine there are restrictive covenants on the property.
Okay.
It does get rather a bit of a technical and legal nightmare, but
yes.
I've made my point.
And I'm sorry, members, I just saw this. It's all come flowing to me when I went on my site visit today, and it's unfortunate that we can't really do site visits properly at this point in time. It was very educational. These two parking spaces that can be put in under permitted development can only be accessed on this over the new housing that's proposed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, we're always told the planning does not go with the resident, goes with the property. So in theory, this property could be owned by someone else other than the person who actually owns it at the moment. They may not give permission for access.
Yeah, that's possible. Can I ask?
Give us.
Can I ask Stephen to bring up the location plan, please? The red line. Sorry. Can you hear me, Stephen?
Okay, Simon's taken back the
Simon,
driving of that.
the red line location plan, Simon, please. Whilst Simon's doing that, I'm trying to answer your question, Mr. Chairman. Because the application site includes what will be both dwellings, the plan, which will be conditioned. Okay. So if there's any future effective breach of that condition through property rights, there will be a breach of condition of the planning permission and we can take action. And in any event, because both plannings will be initially, obviously, owned by the existing developer or whoever it's sold on to, he or she, they will certainly apply easement rights for number 18 for obvious reasons across the land of the what will be called 18A or whatever. As I said before, these sort of civil covenant matters are largely separate from planning, but I can assure in advising the committee that with the plans condition attached to this consent, if it's issued, if there's a breach of that, we can.
Okay, fine. Can we get rid of the screen, please, Simon? Stephen, thank you. Okay, well, that's interesting. We've had several interesting questions. Any more questions for officers before we go to debate, general debate? No, I'm not seeing any. So who wants to lead off with this? No one wants to volunteer to lead. Go ahead, Councillor Pask.
I put my hand up straight away, Chairman, before I start speaking. Right, Chairman, we all read agendas like this, hopefully every 3 weeks with the occasional gap. And we read them and you look at them and you get a feeling, don't you? And I confess to you that on reading this agenda when it came out last week, I thought this looks pretty innocuous. There's a house, it's had a pretty big extension on it. They want to take the extension away and they're in a settlement boundary. They want to put a smaller separate house in. It was only, I confess, when I received all the comments from local people and parish council that I thought there's something more behind this, which is why I've already admitted to it. I was out and about towards the east of the district and I deliberately went to look, as you did, Chairman. And I think I agree that this is one of those applications where you really need to see the site. And I'm sorry, and I'm not criticising you, Mr. Dowding, but a desktop exercise to work out parking arrangements on this sort of application, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, it's inadequate. This, Chairman, in my humble opinion, having walked around extensively, I dodged the rain, I got there just at the right time. I parked in that little parking area where you did by the sound of it, where there were 5 cars, room for another 5 or so. And I went round and looked at Weaklands Close as well. This the whole area, the whole setup has been designed to minimise the impact of cars, which I think is quite innovative in the 70s. I'm not confusing access rights, which are not a planning matter. I'm not confusing other rights, which are not planning matters. I'm looking at this, or endeavouring to do so, in pure planning terms. If you walk down, as I'm sure you did, Chairman, Sandhills Way, these are pretty identical houses, linked, detached, linked by the little entrance porches. They're quite pleasant and built in the 70s. They've stood the test of time pretty well, I think. Number 18 already has a big extension on it, I accept, which tilts the balance a little bit. But my personal view is that putting a separate house there tilts the balance even more. My main concerns, and my dilemma is this, Chairman, we are told at so many committees that we can't rail against what is a technical appraisal from our professional highways officers. Well, I normally accept that. I accept that very well. But, and I heard Mr. Dowding's answers, which I respect, Even if you have to do a 5-point turn, you can manoeuvre a car. I can drive a car too, Mr. Dowding, and I did the same. Some, however, don't find reversing quite as easy. Some men friends of mine, even, I'm not being sexist. But Chairman, I am uneasy about this application, which is why I took the trouble to look at it. And I think that's why I took the trouble to look at it as well. I'm going to use the word, it's contrived. I'm actually very sad. Previous refusal reasons did not include. And let's touch on some other things here. On inadequate rear garden space, which I think is relevant. We've got 100 square meters normally. We're down to 70 here. That's 30% less. I think that's not acceptable. I think it doesn't add. We've got something like a 7-year housing land supply. I don't think they can use that against us on appeal. It's always nice to have a windfall site and a settlement boundary on a brownfield site. I accept, but Chairman, I do challenge at this time. I'm interested to hear other members' thoughts on the matter, but I actually do challenge the contrived nature of the parking. It is contrived, Chairman. It ticks a box. It ticks a box inadequately in my mind. Although I'm not railing against parking standards being very different in the 70s, clearly they are. And clearly, we as members railed in the last local plan 4 or 5 years ago that garages should not be considered as parking. So I'm not arguing against trying to increase provision on existing houses. That would be disingenuous of me. What I'm arguing about is the contrived box-ticking exercise that says, technically, you can squeeze 3 cars in there. That's the one for the one house that meets the 1970 requirements, plus 2 for a 3-bedroom house. Chairman, I'd be fascinated to hear other members' views, but I do not like contrived applications, and I consider this to be very much so one of those.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Parsk. I've got, let me get the sequence right. I've got Councillor McCrow, followed by Councillor Stewart, followed by Councillor Linden. Alan, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I know this area fairly well. Once upon a time, it's part of my ward, and I do remember walking around this area, various others in the Ford's Farm area, with these kind of development away from the roads with these footpaths, and I did find it quite very pleasant. And I'm very worried that if we allow this to go ahead, it's going to spoil the character of this particular part of the area, because we're going to introduce up to 3 parked cars into what is currently a nice little piece of lawn. Now, when I went down to have a look at this site at the weekend, I went down there before I had looked at the diagram on page 53, which is the parking layout. And I looked at that and I thought, I don't think you can get 3 cars on there, not easily in any case. And then when I look at page 53 in our report, we see that the tracking lines from one of the spaces kind of almost touches the posts on either side of that entrance. But we've been told this evening that the measurement as obtained by our officers on the plans is probably not accurate, and that the actual gap is either 200 or 300 millimeters narrower. 300 millimeters in old money, of course, is a foot. So if it was a very tight squeeze at 2.8 meters, at 2.5, I think it's going to be impossible. So I think I was going to use the word contrived for that parking area as well. So I think it is. And I think we should be rejecting that as one of the reasons. One of the other thoughts I had was, well, this is a very tight area. Construction is going to be very difficult. I thought, well, there must be a construction method as one of the conditions, but there's not. And I know the objectors have alluded to that. And I think if we were minded to approve this, we should have that construction method statement, because delivering materials and getting equipment onto that site is going to be extremely difficult without obstructing garages or the various routes through there. So I think I'm minded to recommend we refuse this.
Okay, I'm hearing a proposal, but I'm not.
Well, I wasn't actually proposing. I'm just saying how my mind works.
Yeah, but I'm hearing where it's going. I may come back to either you, Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. From the sounds of it, I'm in agreement with Councillor Pask and the points made by Councillor Macro as well. So I've lived in Ford's Farm for over 20 years and I live in a walkway. I live at the end of a walkway and to be honest, I can't imagine actually converting my front lawn to be able to park my car in front of it. And actually one of the things that I wanted to talk about was the detrimental impact this will have on, and I think it's number 7 Sandhills, I would think, and also number 16. I can only imagine on a cold frosty morning when a car needs to be warmed up, it's going to be directly outside their windows. And these residents bought these properties because they were in a walkway, a trafficless, carless walkway. So I do have some real concerns. I totally understand that we're trying to look for opportunities to put developments onto brownfield sites that are sustainable. I don't feel this one is, and I just think that all of the concerns that at the moment have been voiced would really work against this.
Thank you very much, Councillor Linden.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. While I haven't visited this site recently, I have been around that area, so I've got a good idea of what goes on around there. I just want to raise the issue that Michael Butler put, that his recommendation is on balance. Really, I have a lot of sympathy with the other members who've just spoken in terms of what's going on, and I would agree with them from Councillor Macro down to Councillor Stewart that it's most probably, and Councillor Pask as well, that it most probably is a refusal as far as I'm concerned. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, can I just clarify something? Councillor Mays, you had your hand up and it disappeared again. Do you wish to speak?
No, it's all right. Thank you.
Okay, fine. I'm hearing the way this is going. One of the things that I have mulled over quite a lot since this afternoon is if I was going to refuse it because it doesn't feel right, doesn't look right, and I think that's what you're all saying, what's the planning reasons for refusing? And I'm kind of a little bit struggling on this, on what they would be. So if anybody wishes to, I'm hearing garden space as one. I'm hearing things like, it's not just the parking, because there are permitted development rights here. And I suspect if we were to turn it down we don't think there should be parking outside that house. And it goes to an appeal. It's a dodgy one for us to win on that one, I would have thought, because of parking, the permitted development rights. Change of the character of the area is something that you might want to think about, because it certainly does turn a walkway into a carway would be a change of character. But I'm looking for someone to make me a proposal now. I've given some guidance and I've got Councillor Pask's hand up. And then I've also got Councillor Macro.
Well, Chairman, I was struggling with this as well, in the same as you, but I think I have clarified my thoughts. So let me test the water, as they say. I think it is detrimental to the street scene in that it is a complete change with having these walkways with grassed areas in front. This would be a complete change, so detrimental to the street scene. My personal view, and I'm looking for guidance if I'm totally out of line, is to include the parking, because I'm sorry, that parking is contrived. It's all very well saying, I tick the box, I've got 3 parking spaces, technically that's all I need. They've got to be 3 usable, accessible parking spaces that one can actually drive in, perhaps more importantly, drive out of, because reversing a car is somewhat different from fronting it in. And I'm sorry, I'm going to stick to that unless I'm really persuaded otherwise.
So it's street.
This is
it's street
scene primarily. Garden site. Now again, I need guidance.
Garden
wasn't part of the previous refusal, was it?
Are you saying insufficient parking space, or how would you describe that? If it's part of your proposal,
Yeah. No, I'm working on that. Sorry, I'd already moved on to garden size. I'll go back to the parking. My is the inadequate access to the proposed parking.
Inadequate access to the proposed parking. Okay.
And yes, inadequate access to the proposed parking.
Okay. We've got a proposal to refuse. Is that find a seconder? I've got Councillor Stewart seconding.
Oh, fine. Okay.
Councillor McCrow, you did have your hand up. Before we take.
I was having difficulty finding the unmute button. Sorry.
Councillor McCrow.
Alan, you were there before me. You can have it.
Thank you. Councillor McCrow, was your hand up for seconding?
My hand up was up for seconding, yes.
Oh, okay, fine. Thank you. Okay, so, right. Anybody else want to say anything? Anybody in support of this thing? Any given the other side of the coin? Okay, well, we've got a properly constituted proposal and seconded. So I'd like to go to the vote. Sharon, would you take us through that, please?
Yeah, both Mr. Butler and Mr. Down have got their hand up, so I don't know if they want to.
I beg your pardon. Thank you for that reminder. Mr. Butler, would you? Well, let's go first, Mike. You go first.
Obviously, if the application is refused, there's just like complete clarity on what reasons for refusal. But perhaps you'd like.
I got well, it was
I just want clarity.
Negative impact on the street scene.
Okay.
In other words, change of character of the area. This walkway to a carway.
Yeah.
Was inadequate access for parking.
Right. I think Simon's taking notes. So that's good.
I'm sorry.
I think Simon's taking notes, so that's good.
And it was insufficient garden space.
Okay, thank you.
If we can include that, Chairman, forgive me for interrupting.
Of course you can include. Of course you can include it. Just
include what you like.
Well, I think we should.
What you
but
like.
It wasn't part of the original refusal.
No, but this is a different application, as we're always told. We're going to change the application.
Right, that's a good point.
Okay, Gareth, Mr. Dowding, you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just curious about the justification for inadequate access for parking. Obviously, I'm minded that if this does go to appeal, we would need to defend it. So I just really like to a few more
measure
an explanation.
Well, I'm hearing queries over the width. Okay, maybe queries over the width. You certainly would have to reverse.
As explained, though, Mr. Chairman, reversing is.
I know you've explained, but I'm giving you the reasons that the members.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay. So they don't like that. They just don't like it. It seems cramped. It's in contravention of our parking policy. You know, there's
okay,
has one parking space, and we're supposed to have two.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's your proposal, Councillor Pask. Did I clarify that to your satisfaction?
I couldn't have clarified it better, Chair. A parking space has to be. You have to get a car into and out of a parking space.
Sharon,
and in my humble opinion, one would struggle with that.
Yeah.
Sharon, you've got your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify, are we including the fact that it's not policy compliant in terms of the number of spacing, or are we just talking about the inadequate?
No, we just said that as well.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to check. Also, I wanted to check in terms of officers, if they've got anything, having heard the debate, if they've got anything that maybe can assist members in formulating refusal.
I'd like to, Chairman. I mean, in order to assist the committee, obviously, well, you know, it's not a recommendation, but if it is to be refused, I would recommend that you also use the word overdevelopment, because you're obviously concerned it is an overdevelopment, and that has connotations in relation to the garden sizes and, of course, the parking.
Okay.
So,
happy to use the word, Chairman. Overdevelopment.
The other point you might want to make, entirely up to you, is whether you want to include detriment to amenities. I don't think you've discussed that in your debate, and that, of course, is a material planning consideration. Whether you want to include detriment to amenity as well, that's entirely up to you.
Councillor Potts.
Yeah, well, I did raise that as well, didn't I, Chairman? So perhaps I should be more consistent. I think it is detrimental to the amenity of the neighbouring property with the parking of cars out the front.
Okay.
So overdevelopment, I'm sorry, I didn't say the word, but that was implicit in the, the lack of garden size, and I use the word now.
Yeah, it would just help our case.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, so the additions would be overdevelopment and impact on amenity. Alan is the seconder. Do you agree with that?
I do, yes.
Okay. Okay. Are we all clear on what we're voting for? I think we are.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got a proposer and a seconder to refuse this application on about 4 or 5 different reasons. Where are you? I've lost you, Sharon. Sharon, take us through the vote, please.
Okay, so Councillor Linden.
Against.
Against the proposal.
For the proposal, yes, sorry.
Okay, so for refusal.
For refusal, yes, sorry.
Okay. Councillor Longton. Sorry, you're muted.
For refusal.
Okay. Councillor McKinnon.
For.
Councillor Macro.
For.
Councillor Mays.
For.
Councillor Pask.
For.
Councillor Stewart.
For.
Councillor Woodhams.
For.
Councillor Law.
I'll make it unanimous. 4.
Okay. So that is unanimous.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, members. Thank you, officers. We have we have refused that application, and I think that I haven't got my papers in front of me, but I don't think we've got anything else. Can anybody help me? Have we got anything else? We've no comments on appeals or anything like that. Councillor Woodham, stand up.
Chairman, yes. From time to time, it's extremely difficult to hear the officers, as you quite rightly indicated. As soon as the head moved 1 inch to the left or the right, we lost a part of what they were saying. Some very important words were missed. Is there any chance that for the next meeting we could try and improve on the reception, please?
Yeah, I think that I think that is a very valid point. And if my memory serves me right, we've had that before, Michael. I think you've got a very omnidirectional microphone.
Yeah. I'll see if I can have a laptop looked at, Chairman, and see what I can do.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Separate microphone.
And I hope you'll take this back to planning. You know, we did have a very embarrassing start, and I understand there was a technical difficulty, and we all
we should have a backup. That's a fair point, Chairman.
You need a plan B.
Chairman, we are still. Chairman, we are still live. Perhaps when you close the meeting, you could stay on.
Well, I don't mind that all being recorded as going out live. I think is a very valid to be made in public.
Well, I have some suggestions to make, Chairman.
Well, fine. If you want to do that, if you want to talk about those in public, that's fine with me.
Oh, okay, I will. To save further embarrassment at future meetings, without pointing any fingers in any direction whatsoever, I firmly believe that presentations should be backed up to someone else. I don't know what happened tonight, but it took 1/4 of an hour to find someone with the presentation, and I don't find it acceptable. I don't want to say things like that, but I've said it now.
No, I agree, and I think it's very obvious to any members of the public who were watching. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Fine. We should be a professional. We are normally a very professional in the way in which we conduct.
Yes, anybody watching us for the first time would get a very wrong impression, because I think we have since lockdown started way back last year, and we've been doing these things. We've had very, very smooth. I in fact have had people who have had their applications or have parishes have actually sent me emails complimenting us all on the running of Eastern area. So it was most unusual tonight, but I think a lesson learned. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Councillor Woodhams again.
No, I was just saying thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much and good evening.